I knew they were there before I opened the door. 2 horses I did not recognize, tied to the fence post near the water trough. Bootprints in the dust on my porch steps, fresh enough that the edges had not yet crumbled, and the smell. Leather mixed with gunpowder, sharp in the dry Arizona air. My hand went to the rifle leaning against the doorframe. 3 years alone on this ranch had taught me that strangers did not visit for pleasantries. They came for water, for shelter, or for trouble, sometimes all 3. I pushed the door open slowly. 2 women sat inside my house, not on the chairs where guests were supposed to sit, on my dining table. One had long black hair tied low at her neck, a knife resting beside her hip. The other held something in her hands, something that made my breath catch. Sarah's spyglass. The brass telescope my dead wife had left behind, her name carved into the metal. The woman with the knife looked at me without blinking. Her face was all hard angles, a scar running from her chin to her jawline. She spoke in English, but her voice carried the weight of stone scraping against iron. "Harlan Frost, we have been waiting for you for 4 hours." I did not ask who they were. That would come later. I asked the only question that mattered in a place like this, where survival was measured in days, not years. What do you want from a dying ranch? The other woman, the one holding Sarah's spyglass, set it down carefully. Her eyes were brown, sharp as a hawk's. When she spoke, her voice was softer but no less certain. "We need a man, not the kind who knows how to kill, the kind who knows how to keep things alive." I stood there, one hand still on the rifle, the other gripping the doorframe. My mind worked through the possibilities. Thieves did not announce themselves. Settlers did not come alone. And women, Apache women from the look of them, did not ride this far into white territory without a reason bigger than thirst. "You are not here for water," I said. The woman with the scar stood. She was tall, taller than most men I knew, and when she stepped off the table, the floorboards creaked under her weight. She wore leather pants, a cotton shirt stained with dust and sweat, and a belt with a knife sheath on each side. She did not look like someone who asked for permission. "No," she said. "We are here for you." I loosened my grip on the rifle but did not let go. 3 years of silence had made me careful. 3 years of speaking only to animals and shadows had taught me that words could cost more than bullets. "I do not know you," I said, "but we know you." The woman with the spyglass stepped forward. She was smaller, younger, maybe 25 or 26. Her face was softer, her movements quieter, but there was something in her eyes that reminded me of a doctor watching a wound. She was studying me, measuring me. "Harlan Frost," she said, "born in Missouri, came to Arizona in 1877, married Sarah Winters in 1878, lost her in childbirth 1 year later, lost the baby too. You buried them under the oak tree behind this house. You have not spoken to another human being in 6 months. You talked to your sheep. You fixed a fence last week that no one will ever see. And yesterday you buried the last horse your wife ever rode." My throat tightened. The rifle felt heavier. "How do you know that?" the woman with the scar answered. "Because we have been watching you for 3 weeks. Silence filled the room like smoke. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the loose shutter on the east wall. I should have fixed that weeks ago. Sarah used to remind me about it. "Who are you?" I asked. "My name is Sitsi," the woman with the scar said. "This is my sister Yuma. We are Apache, and we are here because our people are dying." Yuma stepped closer, slow and deliberate, the way someone approaches a wounded animal. She stopped 3 feet away, close enough that I could see the fine lines around her eyes, the way her hands trembled just slightly. "Our bloodline is ending," she said. "In 6 months, the United States government will enforce the Indian Removal Act. Every Apache in Arizona will be forced to leave. We will be sent to reservations in Oklahoma, where the land is bad and the water is poison. Most of us will die within 2 years. Sitsi crossed her arms. "But there is a way to stay. If we have children with a white man, children who are half Apache and half white, the government cannot force us to leave. The children have rights, rights we do not have." I stared at them. My mind scrambled to make sense of what they were saying, but the pieces did not fit together in any way I understood. "You want me to help you find a man," I said slowly. Yuma shook her head. "No, we want you to be that man." The room tilted. I felt it in my chest first, a tightness that spread to my lungs, my throat. I set the rifle down against the wall because my hands were shaking too much to hold it steady. "You are asking me to give us children," Sitsi finished. Her voice did not waver. "To father children with both of us, so that our people can survive." I opened my mouth, but no words came. Yuma stepped closer again, and this time she was close enough that I could smell the sage on her clothes, the faint scent of smoke from a campfire. "We know what we are asking," she said quietly. "We know it sounds impossible, but we have tried everything else." Sitsi's jaw tightened. "We went to 5 other white men before you. 4 of them tried to rape us when they understood what we wanted. The 5th ran to the sheriff and reported us for trespassing." Yuma's voice dropped even lower. "You are the last name on our list, Harlan Frost. If you say no, we will have to cross into Mexico, and we will die there. All of us, our mothers, our brothers, the children who are already born, everyone." I took a step back. My heel hit the wall. I pressed my palms flat against the wood, needing something solid to hold on to. "Why me?" I managed. "Why not someone younger? Someone stronger?" Sitsi walked to the window, looked out at the dry fields. "Because we do not need a man who is strong with a gun. We need a man who is strong in other ways." Yuma picked up a small photograph from the table, one I had not even noticed she had been holding. It was a picture of Sarah, taken the year we were married. She was smiling, her hair tied back, her hand resting on a fence post. "She died giving birth," Yuma said softly. It was not a question. I nodded, unable to speak. "Then you understand," Yuma said. "You understand what we are risking, and you understand what it means to lose someone you are trying to protect." She set the photograph down gently, as if it were made of glass. "We are not asking you to love us," she said. "We are asking you to help us survive. And maybe, if we are lucky, we can help you survive too." I looked at Sitsi, standing by the window, at Yuma, standing in front of me with Sarah's photograph in her hands, at the house that had been empty for so long it had started to feel like a grave. "I cannot do this," I said finally. "I made a promise to my wife. I promised her I would never let another woman die because of me." Yuma tilted her head slightly. "And if you say no, 2 women will die anyway. Just slower, just hungrier." Sitsi turned from the window. Her eyes were hard but not cruel. "We are not asking you to decide tonight. We are asking you to think about it." She moved toward the door, and Yuma followed. But before they stepped outside, Yuma paused. She reached into a leather pouch on her belt and pulled out something small, folded, a piece of paper. She set it on the table. "This fell out of your coat pocket when you came in," she said. I looked down. It was a letter. Sarah's letter, the one I kept in my jacket, the one I had read so many times the creases had started to tear. Yuma did not touch it. She just looked at me, and in that look, I knew she had read it. "Your wife asked you to try again," Yuma said quietly. "She asked you not to let your dream die with her." They walked out into the fading sunlight, leaving the door open behind them. I stood there, staring at the letter on the table, my heart hammering against my ribs. Outside, I heard the sound of tent poles being driven into the ground, the creak of leather being stretched, the low murmur of voices in a language I did not understand. They were not leaving. I picked up the letter with shaking hands. Sarah's handwriting, careful and slanted, filled the page. I had memorized every word years ago. but I read it again anyway. My dearest Harlan, if you are reading this, it means I am gone. Please do not blame yourself. Please do not spend your life in a graveyard. I am asking you, begging you, to try again. Find someone. Build something. Do not let our dream of a family die just because I could not live to see it. I love you, and I forgive you for whatever guilt you carry. Now forgive yourself. I folded the letter and put it back in my pocket. Through the open door, I could see the tent taking shape near the dry creek bed. 2 figures moving in the golden light of sunset. 2 women who had ridden into my life with a request that should have been impossible. But nothing about this life had ever been possible. Not Sarah surviving childbirth, not me surviving the years after, not this ranch still standing when everything else had crumbled. I walked outside slow, my boots crunching on the dry earth. Sitsi was hammering a stake into the ground. Yuma was unrolling a hide blanket, spreading it across the dirt. They did not look up when I approached. "How long have you been planning this?" I asked. Sitsi drove the stake in with one final hit, then straightened. 3 months, since the law was announced. "And you have been watching me for 3 weeks." "Yes." "What did you see?" Yuma stood, brushing dust from her hands. "We saw a man who buries a horse with his bare hands instead of leaving it for the vultures. We saw a man who plants seeds in dead soil because he believes they will grow. We saw a man who talks to animals like they understand pain." She met my eyes. "We saw someone who still believes in something, even when everything else is gone." I looked at the tent, at the dry land stretching out in every direction, at the mountains in the distance turning purple as the sun sank lower. "I have not said yes," I told them. Sitsi nodded. "We know. And I might still say no. We know that too." Yuma picked up a water skin, took a slow drink, then offered it to me. I hesitated, then took it. The water was warm, tasted like leather, but I drank anyway. "We will be here," Yuma said, "watching, waiting, and when you are ready, you will tell us." I handed the water skin back. "And if I am never ready?" Sitsi looked at me for a long moment, her face unreadable. "Then we will leave in 7 days, and you will go back to talking to ghosts." They did not say anything else. They went back to setting up their camp, moving with the quiet efficiency of people who had done this 100 times before. I stood there, watching, until the sun disappeared completely and the stars began to appear, cold and distant. I walked back to the house, closed the door, and sat at the table. Sarah's spyglass was still there, exactly where Yuma had left it. I picked it up, felt the weight of it in my hands, traced the letters of Sarah's name with my thumb. Outside, I could hear the faint crackle of a fire being lit, voices speaking in Apache, low and rhythmic, like a song I did not know the words to. I set the spyglass down and stared at the ceiling. 7 days. They had given me 7 days to decide if I was brave enough to try again. 7 days to figure out if survival was worth the risk of losing everything one more time. I did not sleep that night. I lay on the bed Sarah and I had shared, staring at the darkness, listening to the wind and the distant sounds of 2 women who were asking me to save them. And all I could think was this: what if I fail again? The next morning, I woke to the sound of voices. Not angry voices, not threatening, just voices. It had been so long since I heard another human speak that it took me a moment to remember where I was. I got up, dressed, and stepped outside. Sitsi and Yuma were standing by the well, talking in low tones. When they saw me, they stopped. Sitsi crossed her arms. Yuma just watched. I walked over, slow, unsure of what to say. "Good morning," I tried. Yuma nodded. Sitsi said nothing. I cleared my throat. "I have sheep to feed, and a fence that needs fixing." "Then fix it," Sitsi said. I blinked. "You are not going to follow me?" No, we are going to watch. And they did. For the next 6 days, everywhere I went, they were there, not close, not talking, just watching. When I fed the sheep, Sitsi stood 20 feet away, arms crossed, eyes tracking my every movement. When I fixed the fence, Yuma sat on a rock in the shade, her hands folded in her lap, silent. It should have felt invasive. It should have made me angry. But instead, it felt like something else, like being seen, like mattering. On the second day, a man rode up to the ranch. I recognized him immediately. Merrick Frost, my cousin, or the man I had believed was my cousin for the last 15 years. He dismounted, his boots hitting the dirt with a heavy thud. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with a thick beard and eyes that always seemed to be calculating something. "Harlan," he said, his voice too friendly. "I heard you had visitors." I glanced at Sitsi and Yuma, standing near the well. News travels fast. Merrick followed my gaze, and his expression shifted. Something hard flickered across his face, something I did not like. "You are keeping company with savages now," he said, loud enough for them to hear. Sitsi's hand moved toward her knife. I stepped between them. "They are guests," I said evenly. Merrick laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Guests, right. Harlan, you do realize what people will say, do you not? You, alone out here with 2 Apache women? They will think you have lost your mind." "Maybe I have." He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "Sarah would not have wanted this. You know that." The words hit like a fist to the stomach. I clenched my jaw, forced myself to breathe. "Do not talk about Sarah," I said quietly. Merrick straightened, shaking his head. "I am just trying to help, cousin. But if you want to throw your life away, that is your choice." He mounted his horse and rode off, kicking up dust as he went. I stood there, fists clenched, until Yuma walked over. "Who was that?" she asked. "Someone who thinks he knows what is best for me." She studied my face. "He loved your wife." I looked at her sharply. "How do you know that?" "Because I know what jealousy looks like." Sitsi joined us, her jaw tight. "If he comes back, I will cut him." "No," I said sour-grown. "He wants you to do that. He wants an excuse to call the sheriff." Yuma nodded slowly. "You are smarter than you look." I almost smiled. That is not a compliment. It was not meant to be one. On the third day, I was wrapping a bandage around the leg of a sheep that had cut itself on barbed wire. Yuma crouched beside me, watching. "Why do you not just kill it?" she asked. "It is lame now. Useless." I did not look up, because it did not ask to be born useful to me. It only asked to be born. She was quiet for a long time. "Your wife taught you that," she said finally. "Yes." She was wise. She was. Yuma reached out, touched the sheep's head gently. The animal did not flinch. "We had a healer in our tribe," she said softly. "She used to say the same thing, that every life has value, even the ones that cannot fight." "What happened to her?" "She died 2 years ago. Fever." I finished tying the bandage and stood. Yuma stood with me. "I am sorry," I said. She nodded. "So am I." On the 4th day, I was burning old wood and trash in a fire pit behind the house. Sitsi stood nearby, watching the flames. I pulled out a small shirt from the pile. It was yellow, stained, too small for any adult. The shirt I had made for the baby who never got to wear it. I stood there, holding it, staring at the fire. "Why do you keep that?" Sitsi asked. "Because it is all I have left of him. It only makes you hurt." "Yes." "Then why?" I looked at her. "Because hurting is the only way I remember he existed." Sitsi's expression softened just for a moment. "Our father died in a storm when we were children. Our mother kept his bow for 10 years. She would hold it every night and cry. Did it help her? No, but she did it anyway. folded the shirt and set it aside, away from the fire. I am not ready to let go yet. No one is ever ready. On the 5th day, Merrick came back. This time, he brought the sheriff. Sheriff Clayton was a gray-haired man with a face like old leather. He dismounted slowly, his hand resting on his gun belt. "Harlan," he said, his voice neutral. "We have had a complaint." "About what?" "About you harboring Apache fugitives. There is a law about sheltering Indians who are evading relocation orders." My blood went cold. "They are not fugitives. They are guests." Merrick stepped forward, grinning. "Do you have proof of that, Harlan? A written invitation, maybe?" I opened my mouth, but before I could speak, Yuma stepped out from the house. She held a piece of paper in her hand. "Here," she said calmly, handing it to the sheriff. "His invitation, signed and dated." Sheriff Clayton unfolded the paper, read it, then looked at me. "This your signature, Harlan?" I looked at the paper. It was written in perfect English. It had my name at the bottom. The handwriting even looked like mine, but I had never written it. I met Yuma's eyes. She did not blink. "Yes," I said. "That is my signature." The sheriff folded the paper and handed it back to Yuma. "All right then. No law broken here." Merrick's face darkened. "Clayton, you cannot seriously believe—" "I believe what I see," the sheriff interrupted. "And what I see is a man with guests on his property. Unless you have proof otherwise, Merrick, I suggest you leave it alone." Merrick glared at me, at Yuma, at Sitsi standing in the doorway with her hand on her knife. Then he mounted his horse and left without another word. After they were gone, I turned to Yuma. "How did you do that?" I asked. She smiled faintly. "My brother, Ashki, used to be a courier. He delivered letters for the army. He learned to copy signatures. So you forged my handwriting. I protected you. There is a difference." Sitsi stepped outside. "You should thank her." I looked at Yuma, at the calm certainty in her eyes. "Thank you." She inclined her head. "You are welcome." On the 6th day, I found Sitsi standing by the gate, staring at the wooden sign that read, "Frost Ranch." Her lips were moving, like she was sounding out the words. I approached slowly. "Can you read?" She stiffened. "No." "Do you want to learn?" She turned, her face hard. "Warriors do not need to read. But mothers do. If you have a child, that child will live in 2 worlds, your world and mine. Reading will help them survive." Sitsi looked at the sign again. Her jaw worked, like she was chewing on something bitter. "I do not want to be weak," she said finally. "Learning is not weakness. It is preparation." She glanced at me, then back at the sign. "What does it say?" "Frost Ranch." "Frost, like your name." "Yes." She traced the letters with her finger, not touching the wood, just following the shapes in the air. "Teach me." "Now?" "Now." So I did. For an hour, I stood beside her, pointing at letters, sounding them out. She repeated each one, slow and deliberate, her voice rough but determined. By the end, she could read the word frost. She said it once more, quietly, like she was testing it. Then she looked at me. "If I have a child," she said, "they will know both languages, yours and mine." "I think that is wise." She nodded, then walked away, back to the tent. On the 7th day, a dust storm came. It rolled in from the west like a living thing, blotting out the sun. I saw it coming and shouted for Sitsi and Yuma. "Get inside the house now!" They did not argue. We ran together, the wind already tearing at our clothes, dust filling our mouths and noses. I slammed the door shut, tied cloth over the windows, but the dust seeped in anyway, turning the air brown. We sat at the table, coughing, waiting, and for the first time in 7 days, we were all in the same room, breathing the same air, trapped together. Yuma looked at me across the table. If this storm kills us, will you regret letting us stay? I thought about it, really thought about it. No, I said. Sitsi leaned back in her chair, arms crossed. Why not? Because I have spent 3 years alone, and these last 7 days, I have remembered what it feels like to be alive. Yuma smiled, just a little. That is the first honest thing you have said to us. The storm lasted 3 hours. When it finally passed, we stepped outside into a world covered in dust. Everything was the same color. The ground, the fence, the tent, the sky. Sitsi brushed dust from her hair. We leave tomorrow. My chest tightened. You are going to Mexico? Yes. Yuma wiped her eyes. Unless you have changed your mind. I looked at them. At Sitsi, tall and fierce and learning to read. At Yuma, quiet and sharp and carrying a secret I did not yet know. I thought about Sarah's letter, about the words she had written, about the promise she had asked me to keep. I have not changed my mind, I said. Sitsi's face went blank. Yuma looked down at her hands. But I have made a decision. They both looked up. You can stay, I said. Not for 7 days, for as long as it takes. Yuma's eyes widened. You mean? I mean yes. I will help you. I will father your children. I will do whatever it takes to keep you alive. Sitsi stepped forward, her voice low and fierce. Do you understand what you are agreeing to? No, but I am agreeing anyway. Yuma crossed the space between us and took my hands. Hers were smaller, rougher, warm, despite the cold wind. Thank you, she whispered. Sitsi did not move. She just looked at me, and in her eyes, I saw something I had not seen before. Relief. We will not let you regret this, she said. I nodded. I know. That night, as the stars came out and the world settled into silence, I sat on the porch. Sitsi and Yuma were by the fire, talking in Apache. I pulled out Sarah's letter one more time, read it by moonlight. Then I folded it carefully and put it away. Tomorrow, everything would change. But tonight, I was no longer alone. And that, I thought, was enough. The council arrived on the 8th day. I was chopping wood behind the house when I heard the horses. Not 2 this time, 4. The sound of hooves on hard earth, steady and deliberate. The kind of rhythm that said these riders were not in a hurry because they did not need to be. I set the axe down and walked around to the front. Sitsi and Yuma were already standing by the well, their backs straight, their faces unreadable. They were not afraid, but they were tense. I could see it in the way Sitsi's hand hovered near her knife, in the way Yuma's breathing had gone shallow. 4 riders emerged from the heat shimmer on the horizon. As they got closer, I could make out their faces. 3 men and 1 woman, all Apache, all dressed in leather and cotton worn smooth by years of sun and wind. They rode like people who had crossed deserts and mountains without maps, who had survived things that would have killed softer men. When they reached the fence line, they stopped. The horses stamped and snorted. Dust hung in the air like a veil. The oldest rider, a man with silver hair and a face carved from stone, dismounted first. He was missing his left eye, the socket covered by a strip of leather tied around his head. When he walked, he moved with the careful balance of someone who had learned to see the world differently. Sitsi stepped forward. Grandfather Nitis. The old man nodded once. His voice, when he spoke, was like gravel sliding down a canyon wall. Sitsi, Yuma, you have been gone for 1 month. We came to see if you were dead or foolish. The woman dismounted next. She was tall, nearly as tall as Sitsi, with gray streaking through her black hair. Her face was harder than the old man's, carved from something that did not forgive. She looked at her daughters with eyes that could have cut glass. Foolish, she said flatly. Definitely foolish. Yuma took a step forward. Mother. The woman, Mala, did not embrace her. She just looked at her, then at me, then back at her daughter. "This is the white man you chose." It was not a question. "Yes," Yuma said. Mala walked toward me, slow and deliberate. She stopped 3 feet away, close enough that I could see the fine scars on her hands, the calluses on her fingers. She smelled like sage and smoke, and something sharper, something medicinal. She studied my face for a long time. I did not look away. "You are small," she said finally. "Yes." "You are old." 34. "You look older." "Grief does that." Her eyes narrowed. "You lost a wife." "And a son." "How did they die?" "Childbirth, both of them, within an hour of each other." Mala's expression did not change, but something shifted in her posture, something that might have been recognition, or sympathy, or both. "And now my daughters want to risk the same death," she said quietly. I met her eyes. "Yes." "Why would you agree to that?" "Because they asked me to, and because saying no would kill them anyway, just slower." Mala turned to the 2 remaining riders. One was a man in his early 40s, lean and scarred, with intelligent eyes that missed nothing. The other was younger, maybe 35, with broad shoulders and a face that looked like it had been built for war. The older man dismounted and walked over. He moved like water, smooth and unhurried. When he stopped beside Mala, he looked at me with something close to curiosity. "Ashki," he said, pointing to himself, "brother to Sitsi and Yuma." I nodded. "Harlan, I know who you are." "Then you have the advantage." Ashki smiled, but it did not reach his eyes. "I have had that advantage for a long time, Harlan Frost, longer than you know." Before I could ask what he meant, the younger man stepped forward. He did not introduce himself. He just stared at me, his jaw tight, his hands flexing at his sides like he was deciding whether to shake my hand or break my neck. Sitsi moved between us. "Dakota, do not." Dakota looked at her, and in that look, I saw everything: anger, hurt, longing. This was a man who loved Sitsi, who had probably loved her for years, and who was watching her choose someone else. "You are making a mistake," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "That is not your decision," Sitsi replied. "It is a decision that affects all of us." Nidis raised his hand, and everyone fell silent. The old man walked toward me, his one good eye fixed on my face. He stopped closer than Mala had, close enough that I could see the deep lines around his mouth, the white scars on his throat. "Harlan Frost," he said, "do you know what happened the last time a white man touched an Apache woman without permission?" "Your daughter told me. 300 people died." 317, Nidis corrected. "I lost my eye in that war. Ashki lost his wife. Mala lost her husband." He paused. "And Dakota lost his entire family, his mother, his father, his 2 sisters. All dead, because one white man could not control himself." The weight of that settled over me like a blanket soaked in ice water. I looked at Dakota, at the rage barely contained behind his eyes, and I understood. "I am not that man," I said quietly. "How do we know?" Dakota demanded. "How do we know you will not use them and discard them? How do we know you will not hurt them?" I did not have a good answer, so I told the truth. "You do not know. You cannot know. All you can do is watch and decide for yourselves." Nidis studied me for a long moment. Then he turned to Sitsi and Yuma. "Is this what you want, both of you?" "Yes," Sitsi said. "Yes," Yuma echoed. Mala stepped forward again. She looked at me with eyes that had seen too much death, too much loss. "If you hurt my daughters, I will skin you alive, slowly. Do you understand?" "I understand." "If they die because of you, I will make sure you die worse." "I understand that too." She held my gaze for another moment, then nodded. "Good. Then we have an understanding." Nidis raised his voice, speaking to all of us. The council does not approve, not yet, but we will allow this to continue under one condition. What condition? I asked. Winter is coming. In 2 weeks the first snow will fall. It will not stop until March. You will be trapped here, the 3 of you, for 4 months. If you survive that winter without abandoning them, without harming them, we will recognize your union. If you fail, Dakota has my permission to kill you. Dakota's hand went to the knife at his belt. Sitsi's hand went to hers. That will not be necessary, I said quickly. We will see, Nidis replied. He turned to Ashki. You will check on them once a month. Report back to me. Ashki nodded. Mala walked to her daughters, pulled them aside. I could not hear what she said, but I saw Yuma's face crumple, saw Sitsi's jaw tighten. When Mala finished, she touched each of their faces, once, gently, then walked back to her horse. Before she mounted, she looked at me one last time. My daughters are strong, she said, but Yuma is also sick. Her heart is weak. It has been weak since she was a child. If she becomes pregnant, there is a chance she will not survive. My blood turned to ice. Does she know? Of course she knows, and she wants to try anyway. Mala's voice cracked just slightly. So if she dies, Harlan Frost, it will not be your fault alone. It will be hers too, but I will still hold you responsible. She mounted and rode away. Nidis and Dakota followed. Only Ashki remained. He walked over to me, moving quietly, like he did not want the others to hear. When he spoke, his voice was so low I had to lean in. I need to tell you something, he said. Something I should have told you 4 years ago. What? He reached into a leather pouch at his belt and pulled out a small photograph. It was old, creased, faded at the edges. He handed it to me. I looked at the image. It showed 3 people standing in front of a house. My house. On the left was Sarah, young and smiling, her hand resting on her belly. On the right was me, thinner than I remembered, my arm around her shoulders. And standing behind us, barely visible in the shadow of the porch, was Ashki. My hands started to shake. When was this taken? August 1879, the day your wife went into labor. I stared at the photograph. I did not remember this being taken. I did not remember Ashki being there. You were there? I whispered. I was there. You left to get medicine from the town doctor. Sarah was alone. I was passing by, heard her screaming, went inside. His voice was flat, emotionless, but I could hear the pain underneath. I tried to help her. I have delivered babies before, but I was 20 minutes too late. By the time I got there, she had already lost too much blood. The baby was not breathing. The world tilted. I gripped the photograph so hard the edges crumpled. Why did you not tell me? I asked, my voice raw. Because you were not there. You came back an hour later. By then, I had already left. I thought you would not want to see an Apache in your house, standing over your dead wife. I would have thanked you. I would have... You would have blamed me, Ashki interrupted gently, and you would have been right to. I failed her. I failed you. I looked up at him, at the guilt carved into his face. She died because she bled too much, not because you were late, not because I was gone. She died because sometimes people die and there is nothing anyone can do. Ashki's throat worked. Before she died, she said something. She asked me to tell you if I ever saw you again. What did she say? She said, tell him it is not his fault. Tell him to try again. The words hit me like a fist to the chest. I folded forward, the photograph pressed against my forehead, my eyes burning. Ashki put a hand on my shoulder. I came back to keep that promise. When my sisters told me they were looking for a white man to help them, I gave them your name, because Sarah asked me to make sure you tried again. I could not speak. I could only stand there shaking while the man who had been with my wife in her final moments held me upright. She would be proud of you, Ashki said quietly, for saying yes, for trying. He let go, stepped back. I will return in 1 month. If you need help, light a fire on the hill. I will see it. He mounted his horse and rode away, leaving me standing there with a photograph and a truth I had not known I needed. Yuma and Sitsi approached slowly. They did not ask what Ashki had said. They just stood beside me, one on each side, their presence steady and warm. "Thank you," I said finally. "For what?" Yuma asked. "For giving me a reason to keep Sarah's promise." Sitsi looked at me, her face softer than I had ever seen it. "You are keeping your own promise now, Harlan Frost. Not hers, yours." That night, I could not sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about Sarah, about Ashki, about the winter that was coming and the choice I had made. Sometime after midnight, I heard footsteps outside my door. Quiet, careful. "Harlan?" Yuma's voice, barely a whisper. "I am awake." The door opened. She stepped inside, wrapped in a blanket, her hair loose around her shoulders. She sat on the edge of the bed, not touching me, just sitting. "I cannot sleep either," she said. "Why not?" "Because I am afraid." "Of what?" "Of dying, of leaving Sitsi alone, of failing my people." She paused. "Of failing you." I sat up, leaned back against the wall. "You will not fail me. You do not know that." "No, but I believe it anyway." She turned to look at me, her eyes catching the moonlight from the window. "My mother told you about my heart." "Yes." "And you still said yes." "Yes." "Why?" I thought about it, really thought about it. "Because you are willing to die for something bigger than yourself," I said. "And I have been living for nothing. If I can help you live, even for a little while, then maybe my life means something too." Yuma reached out, took my hand. Hers was small, warm, trembling slightly. "I am glad it is you," she said softly. "I am glad we found you." She stood, still holding my hand, and for a moment I thought she would leave. But instead she leaned down and kissed my forehead, gentle and brief, like a blessing. "Sleep well, Harlan Frost," she whispered. Then she was gone, and I was alone again. But the warmth of her hand lingered. 2 weeks later, the snow came. It started as a whisper, small flakes drifting down from a gray sky. By evening, it was a roar, a wall of white that erased the horizon. The temperature dropped so fast, I could see my breath inside the house. Sitsi and Yuma moved their tent inside the barn, but by the second day, even the barn was too cold. I opened the house to them. "You can sleep by the fireplace," I said. "I will stay in the bedroom." Sitsi shook her head. "We will all sleep by the fire. It is the only way to stay warm." So we did. 3 people huddled under blankets, feeding the fire through the night, taking turns keeping watch to make sure it did not go out. The first week was the hardest. The snow did not stop. It piled against the door, covered the windows, turned the world into a tomb of white. We rationed the food carefully: dried meat, beans, flour. Enough for 2 people for 4 months. For 3 people, maybe 3 months if we were careful. On the 8th day, Sitsi went outside to check on the sheep. She came back an hour later, her face tight. "3 of them are dead," she said. "Frozen." I closed my eyes. 3 sheep, 3 sources of wool, of meat, of milk. "We will butcher them," I said. "Use the meat. It will not spoil in this cold." Sitsi nodded. "I will do it. I will help." We worked together in the freezing air, our hands numb, our breath clouding around us. Yuma stayed inside, too weak to help. Her cough had gotten worse. I could hear it through the walls, wet and rattling. When we came back inside, blood frozen on our hands, Yuma was sitting by the fire, shivering despite the blankets wrapped around her. "You are getting worse," I said. "I am fine." "You are not fine." She looked up at me, her face pale, shadows under her eyes. "There is nothing we can do about it." so it does not matter. I knelt beside her, took her hand. It was cold, too cold. It matters, I said. It matters to me. Sitsi crouched on her other side. And to me. Yuma smiled, weak and tired. Then I will try to stay alive, for both of you. The second week was worse. The food ran low. The firewood ran lower. I started burning furniture, the old chairs Sarah and I had made, the table we had eaten at. Piece by piece, I fed our past into the fire to keep our future alive. Sitsi watched me break apart a chair leg, her face unreadable. Does it hurt? She asked. To burn your memories? Yes. Then why do you do it? Because memories cannot keep us warm, and I would rather be cold in my heart than watch you freeze. She looked at me for a long time. Then she picked up another chair and started breaking it apart with her bare hands. On the 15th day, I woke to the sound of Yuma coughing blood. Sitsi was already beside her, holding her upright, her face pale with fear. I ran to get water, clean cloth, anything that might help. But there was nothing. No medicine, no doctor, just us and the cold and the slow, terrible certainty that we were losing her. Yuma looked at me through the coughing, her eyes wide and frightened. I am sorry, she gasped. I am sorry, I am weak. You are not weak, I said, my voice breaking. You are the strongest person I have ever met. She coughed again, harder, and this time the blood came in a spray. Sitsi held her, rocking her gently, whispering in Apache. I did not know what to do. I did not know how to fix this, so I did the only thing I could. I went outside into the storm. The wind tore at me like claws. The snow was waist deep. I could barely see 3 feet in front of me, but I knew where I was going. The hill, the place Ashki had told me to light a fire if I needed help. I stumbled through the drifts, my legs burning, my lungs screaming. When I reached the top, I pulled out the matches I had wrapped in cloth, struck one with numb fingers. It took 6 tries before the kindling caught, but when it did, the flames roared up, bright orange against the white world. I stood there, feeding the fire, praying that Ashki would see it, praying that he would come. Then I stumbled back down the hill, half frozen, barely conscious. When I pushed open the door, Sitsi looked up, her face streaked with tears. Where did you go? She demanded. To get help. There is no help. We are alone. No, we are not. I collapsed beside the fire, shaking so hard my teeth rattled. Sitsi wrapped blankets around me, cursing in Apache, her hands rough and desperate. Yuma lay beside us, her breathing shallow, her lips blue. Do not die, I whispered to her. Please, do not die. She opened her eyes, just a little. I will try. 3 hours later, we heard horses. Sitsi ran to the window, scraped away the frost. Someone is coming. The door burst open. Ashki stepped inside, covered in snow, followed by an old woman wrapped in furs. Where is she? Ashki demanded. Sitsi pointed. Ashki and the old woman moved fast, kneeling beside Yuma, speaking rapidly in Apache. The old woman pulled out pouches of herbs, small vials of liquid, tools I did not recognize. Who is she? I asked. A healer, Ashki said. The best we have. She will do what she can. The old woman worked for hours, mixing herbs, making Yuma drink bitter teas, pressing hot stones wrapped in cloth against her chest. Yuma cried out in pain, but the old woman did not stop. Finally, as dawn broke, Yuma's breathing steadied. The blue faded from her lips. The old woman sat back, exhausted. She looked at me and spoke in Apache. Ashki translated. She says Yuma will live, for now. But her heart is damaged. She must rest. No hard work, no stress, and no pregnancy. Not yet. I nodded, relief flooding through me so fast I felt dizzy. Thank you. Thank you. The old woman stood, gathered her things. She said something else, and Ashki's face darkened. "What did she say?" Sitsi asked. Ashki hesitated. "She said if Yuma gets pregnant, there is a 70% chance she will die during childbirth, maybe higher." The room went silent. Yuma, barely conscious, whispered something. Ashki leaned close to hear, then looked at us. "She says she will take that chance when the time comes." Sitsi grabbed her sister's hand. "No, you will not. I will not let you." "It is not your choice," Yuma murmured. "It is mine." Before anyone could argue, Ashki stood. "We need to go. The storm is getting worse. We will return in 2 weeks." He looked at me. "You did well, lighting the fire, staying with them. Sarah would be proud." Then he and the old woman were gone, swallowed by the white. The rest of the winter passed in a blur of cold and hunger and quiet moments by the fire. Yuma recovered slowly. Sitsi and I took turns caring for her, feeding her, keeping her warm. And somewhere in those long, dark months, something changed. We stopped being 3 separate people and became something else, something I did not have a word for. On the last day of February, Dakota appeared at the door. He looked different, thinner, tired, but when he saw us, all 3 of us alive, sitting together by the fire, something in his face cracked. He knelt in front of me. "I was wrong," he said. "I thought you would abandon them. I thought you would hurt them. But you stayed. You nearly died to save Yuma." He pulled a small pouch from his belt, pressed it into my hands. "Medicine. For Yuma. I stole it from the tribal healer. If the council finds out, I will be punished. But I do not care." I looked at the pouch, then at him. "Why?" "Because you have proven yourself, and because I love Sitsi enough to want her to be happy, even if it is not with me." He stood, looked at Sitsi. "Be happy," he said quietly. Then he left. Sitsi stared at the closed door, tears running down her face. "He is a good man," she whispered. "Yes," I agreed. "He is." That night, as the fire burned low and the 3 of us huddled together for warmth, Yuma spoke. "When spring comes," she said, "we will try. We will keep our promise." Sitsi nodded. "We will." I looked at them both, these 2 women who had ridden into my life and turned it upside down, who had asked me for the impossible and made me believe I could give it. "Then we will try," I said, "together." Outside, the last snow of winter fell soft and silent, and inside, by the fire, 3 people who had survived the cold made a promise to face whatever came next. Together. Spring came slowly to Arizona, like a woman waking from a long fever. The snow melted first in patches, revealing dead grass and mud and the bones of winter. Then came the rain, soft and persistent, turning the dry creek behind the house into a living thing again. By late March, the first green shoots pushed through the earth, fragile and defiant. I stood on the porch, watching the land transform, and felt something similar happening inside my chest. A thawing, a returning. Behind me, the door opened. Sitsi stepped out, wrapped in one of my old coats. She had gained weight over the winter, her face fuller, her movements less sharp. She looked almost soft in the morning light. "The sheep are calving," she said. 3 born last night, all alive. "That is good." "Yes." We stood together in silence, watching the sun climb over the eastern hills. It was a routine we had fallen into over the long winter months, standing together, not talking, just being. "Yuma is feeling stronger," Sitsi said finally. "She walked to the well this morning without help." I saw. "She wants to try, soon." I turned to look at her. Sitsi's face was serious, her dark eyes searching mine. "Are you ready?" she asked. "I do not know if anyone is ever ready for something like this." That is not an answer. I looked back at the land, at the green creeping across the brown. "I am terrified," I admitted. "Every day I wake up afraid that one of you will die because I said yes, that I will lose someone again and this time it will be my fault." Sitsi moved closer, not touching, just standing near enough that I could feel the warmth of her. It will not be your fault. It will be our choice. There is a difference. Your mother does not see a difference. My mother sees only her own fear. She lost my father. She is afraid of losing us. Sitsi paused. But we are not afraid. We have already decided. When? Today. Tonight. Whenever you are ready. My hands gripped the porch railing. The wood was rough, weathered, real. I focused on that, on the solid things, the things I could hold on to. I need to tell you something first, I said. Both of you. Together. Sitsi called for Yuma. She came out a few minutes later, moving carefully, one hand pressed to her chest. She still coughed sometimes, still tired easily, but the color had returned to her face. She looked alive. The three of us sat on the porch steps, the sun warming our backs. Before we do this, I said, I need you to understand what you are asking of me, and what I am asking of you. We know what we are asking, Sitsi said. Do you? Because I do not think you do. Not completely. I took a breath. If you get pregnant, and if something goes wrong, I will have to choose. Choose between you and the baby, and I need you to tell me now, before anything happens, what you want me to choose. Yuma spoke first. The baby. Always the baby. No, Sitsi said flatly. That is not. It is my choice, Yuma interrupted. And I choose the baby. Our people need this child more than they need me. I looked at Sitsi. And you? She was quiet for a long time. When she spoke, her voice was low and hard. I do not want to die. But if it comes to that, save the child. That is why we are here. That is not why I am here, I said. I am not here to watch you die. I am here because I want you to live. Yuma reached over, took my hand. Then help us live by giving us what we came for. A future. A reason for our people to stay. That is how you keep us alive, Harlan. Not by protecting us from risk, but by helping us take the risk that matters. I looked down at her hand in mine, so small, so warm. Then at Sitsi, fierce and strong and trying so hard not to show how scared she was. All right, I said. We will try, but you have to promise me something. What? Sitsi asked. If it starts to go wrong, if you are in danger, you let me save you. You do not choose death just to prove a point. Yuma smiled, sad and knowing. We cannot promise that, but we promise to fight, to live for as long as we can. It was not the answer I wanted, but it was the only answer they could give. That night, after the sun had set and the stars came out cold and bright, Yuma came to my room. She knocked softly, waited for me to answer. When I opened the door, she stood there in a simple cotton dress, her hair loose, her feet bare. Are you sure? I asked. Yes. You do not have to do this tonight. We can wait. I have been waiting my whole life, Harlan. I do not want to wait any more. She stepped inside, closed the door behind her. In the dim light of the oil lamp, she looked younger than 25, almost fragile. I am afraid, she whispered. So am I. Will you be gentle? Yes. Will you stop if I ask you to? Yes. She nodded, satisfied. Then she reached up, touched my face with one hand, tracing the lines around my eyes, the gray in my beard. You are a good man, Harlan Frost, better than you know. I am just a man trying not to make the same mistakes. Then let us make new mistakes, together. What happened next was tender and awkward and human. There was no music, no poetry, just two people trying to find comfort in each other, trying to create something that mattered in a world that had taken so much from both of them. Afterward, Yuma lay beside me, her head on my chest, her breathing soft and even. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For what?" "For being kind. My first time could have been with someone who was not kind." I stroked her hair, felt the silky weight of it between my fingers. Did it hurt? A little, but not in a bad way, in a way that felt like something beginning. We lay there in silence, listening to the night sounds, crickets, wind, the distant howl of a coyote. "Harlan," Yuma said after a while. "Yes?" "If I die, will you remember me?" My throat tightened. "Yes." "Not just as the woman who died, but as the woman who tried. I will remember you as the woman who was braver than anyone I have ever known." She turned, kissed my shoulder. "I can live with that." She fell asleep soon after, curled against my side. I stayed awake, staring at the ceiling, terrified and grateful in equal measure. 3 weeks later, Sitsi came to me. It was evening, the sky streaked with orange and purple. She found me in the barn, repairing a broken stall door. "It is my turn," she said. I set down the hammer. "You do not have to do this if you are not ready." "I am ready. I have been ready since the day we arrived." She crossed her arms, her face tight. "But I need to tell you something first." "What?" "I have never done this before, with anyone." I blinked. "I thought Dakota wanted to. I did not. I was waiting for the right reason." She looked at me, her eyes fierce. "This is the right reason?" "Sitsi, you do not have to do this just because Yuma did. You can wait. You can—" "I am not doing this because Yuma did. I am doing this because I want to, because I am tired of being afraid, because I want something of my own." Her voice cracked slightly. "I want a child, Harlan. I want to be a mother. I have wanted it since I was 16 years old, and everyone told me warriors do not get to be mothers." I walked over to her slowly, giving her time to step back if she wanted. She did not. "You will be a good mother," I said. "How do you know?" "Because you have been taking care of everyone your whole life. Your sister, your people, even me. You know how to protect. Now you get to learn how to nurture." Her eyes shimmered. "I do not know how to be gentle." "Neither did I. But we learn." She reached out, took my hand. Her palm was rough with calluses, her grip strong enough to break bones, but her touch was careful. "Show me," she said. "Show me how to be gentle." So I did. Sitsi was different from Yuma. Where Yuma had been soft and yielding, Sitsi was tense and controlled, like a bowstring pulled too tight. It took time for her to relax, to trust, to let go of the part of herself that was always ready to fight. But when she did, when she finally stopped trying to be strong and let herself be vulnerable, something shifted. She cried, not from pain, from release, from the relief of finally being allowed to be something other than a warrior. Afterward, she lay on her back, staring at the ceiling, her hand resting on her stomach. "How will I know?" she asked. "If it worked?" "You will miss your monthly bleeding. You will feel tired, sick maybe." "How long?" "A few weeks." She nodded, still staring at the ceiling. "If I have a son, I will name him Ashki, after my brother. If I have a daughter, I will name her Sarah, after your wife." My chest tightened. "You do not have to do that." "I want to. Your wife is part of this story too. She should be remembered." I reached over, took her hand. She gripped it tight like she was holding on to something that might slip away. "I am afraid," she admitted. "I know. But I am also happy. Is that strange?" "No, I think that is what hope feels like." She turned her head, looked at me. "Do you feel hope, Harlan?" I thought about it, about Sarah and the child I lost, about the 3 years of silence and grief, about these 2 women who had walked into my life and asked me to try again. "Yes," I said, "I do." May came, and with it, the heat. The land turned from green to gold almost overnight. the grass drying, the earth cracking. But the creek still ran, fed by snowmelt from the distant mountains. The sheep grew fat. The garden Yuma had planted began to sprout, and both women began to change. Yuma was sick first. She woke one morning and ran outside, vomiting into the dirt. When she came back, pale and shaking, she looked at me with wide eyes. "It worked," she whispered. Sitsi took longer. It was almost 3 weeks before she missed her bleeding, another week before the sickness came. But when it did, she smiled through the nausea, fierce and triumphant. "We did it," she said, "both of us." I should have felt joy, relief, something, but all I felt was a cold, creeping terror. Both of them pregnant, both of them at risk, and me, the only one standing between them and the death I had seen before. That night I could not sleep. I sat on the porch, staring at the stars, my mind spinning through every terrible possibility. The door opened. Yuma stepped out, wrapped in a blanket. "You are thinking about how we could die," she said. "Yes." She sat beside me. "So am I. Every day, every moment. But I am also thinking about how we could live, how our children could live, how our people could have a future." She leaned her head on my shoulder. "Fear and hope are the same thing, Harlan. They are both about the future. The only difference is which one you choose to feed. I do not know how to feed hope when I have seen so much death. Then let us teach you." June brought the first real crisis. A rider came at dawn, moving fast. I recognized him from a distance. Merrick. I walked out to meet him, my rifle in hand. Sitsi and Yuma stayed on the porch, watching. Merrick dismounted, his face flushed with heat and anger. "Harlan, we need to talk." "About what?" "About the fact that you are living with 2 Apache women, about the rumors going around town, about the sheriff asking questions." "What kind of questions?" "Questions about whether you are violating the Anti-Miscegenation Act, questions about whether those women are here legally, questions about whether you are harboring fugitives." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Harlan, people are talking, and some of them are angry. You need to send these women away before something bad happens." "No." "No? Harlan, this is not a request. I am trying to help you. If the sheriff comes out here and finds them pregnant—" He trailed off, shaking his head. "Do you understand what that means? You could lose everything, the ranch, your freedom, maybe your life. Then I lose it." Merrick stared at me like I had lost my mind. "Why? Why are you doing this?" "Because they asked me to, and because it is the right thing to do." "The right thing?" Merrick's voice rose. "The right thing is to protect your own, to honor your family, to honor Sarah's memory." "I am honoring Sarah's memory. She asked me to try again, to build something. This is me trying." Merrick's face twisted. "Sarah did not ask you to betray your race, to pollute your bloodline with savages." I hit him. I did not plan it, did not think about it. My fist just moved, connecting with his jaw, snapping his head back. He stumbled, fell, blood streaming from his split lip. He looked up at me, shocked. "You hit me. You actually hit me." "Get off my land, Merrick, and do not come back." He stood slowly, wiping blood from his mouth. "You are making a mistake, Harlan. A mistake you will regret." "Maybe, but it will be my mistake, not yours." He mounted his horse and rode away. I stood there, shaking, my knuckles throbbing. Sitsi walked over, looked at my hand. "You will bruise." "I know. He will come back, with others." "I know that too." Yuma joined us. "What will we do?" "We will prepare, and we will not run." That night I wrote a letter. It took me 3 hours to get the words right. When I was done, I sealed it and gave it to Ashki, who had come to check on us as promised. "What is this?" he asked. "Insurance. If something happens to me, I want you to open it and do what it says. What does it say? It says that the children are mine, that I acknowledge them, that they have a right to this land under United States law. It is signed and dated. It should be enough to protect them. Ashki looked at the letter, then at me. You are thinking like a father already. I am thinking like a man who has lost too much. I will not lose this too. He tucked the letter into his pouch. I will keep it safe. 2 weeks later, Merrick returned. This time he brought 5 men with him, all armed, all angry. They rode up to the fence line and stopped. Merrick dismounted, holding a piece of paper. Harlan Frost, he called out, I have a warrant here signed by Judge Morrison. You are hereby ordered to turn over the 2 Apache women in your custody for questioning regarding violations of territorial law. I stepped out onto the porch, my rifle across my chest. Behind me, Sitsi and Yuma stood, both armed, both ready. Those women are not in my custody. They are my guests. Guests do not stay for 4 months, one of the men shouted. You are harboring them, and the law says we can remove them by force if necessary. Then you will have to go through me. Merrick shook his head. Harlan, do not be a fool. There are 6 of us, and 1 of you. 3 of us, Sitsi corrected, stepping forward. Her rifle was already aimed at Merrick's chest. 4, a voice called from behind them. Everyone turned. Dakota sat on his horse at the edge of the property, his bow drawn, an arrow nocked. 5, another voice said. Ashki emerged from the barn, his rifle raised. Merrick's face went pale. This is madness. You are all going to hang for this. Maybe, Ashki said calmly. But you will die first, and your friends will die second. Is a piece of paper worth that? The men shifted nervously. One of them, a younger man with fear in his eyes, spoke up. Merrick, this is not what we signed up for. We thought we were just going to scare them. We are here to enforce the law, Merrick snapped. No, I said. You are here because you are angry. Angry that I did not choose the life you wanted for me. Angry that Sarah chose me over you. Angry that I am building something that does not include you. Merrick's face flushed. Sarah would be ashamed of you. Sarah would be proud of me, because I am keeping the promise I made to her, the promise to try, to build, to not give up. I lowered my rifle slightly. You can leave now, Merrick, or you can stay and die. But either way, these women are not going anywhere. Merrick looked at his men. They were already backing their horses away, unwilling to risk their lives for a fight that was not theirs. This is not over, Merrick said. Yes, it is, because if you come back, I will kill you. I would have no choice. The moment would choose for me. Merrick stared at me for a long moment. Then he mounted his horse and rode away, his men following. When they were gone, I lowered my rifle, my hands shaking. Dakota rode up, dismounted. That took courage. That took stupidity. If they come back with the sheriff, they will not, Ashki said. Because Merrick is not your cousin. I turned. What? Ashki pulled out a folded document. I have been investigating. Merrick Frost is not related to you. He is the illegitimate son of the man who owned this land before you bought it. He has been trying to claim it for years, using false genealogy records. If he brings the sheriff, I will present this evidence. He will be arrested for fraud. I stared at the document, my mind reeling. How did you find this? I am good at finding things. It is what I do. Ashki handed me the paper. Keep this safe. You may need it. Dakota looked at Sitsi. Are you well? Yes. The child? Strong, like its mother. Dakota nodded, something like pain flashing across his face. Then he turned to me. Protect them, Harlan Frost, or I will finish what Merrick started. I will. He mounted and rode away. Ashki followed. That night, the 3 of us sat by the fire, exhausted and shaken. He will come back, Sitsi said. Merrick, he will find another way. Let him try, I said. We have the truth, and the truth is stronger than his lies. Yuma leaned against me, her hand on her belly. How much longer do you think we have before the babies come? 4 months, maybe 5. Will we make it? Yes, because we have no other choice. August arrived with a vengeance. The heat was brutal, relentless, turning the days into an endurance test. Yuma and Sitsi both grew large, their bellies swelling, their movements slowing. They could not work anymore, could barely walk. I did everything. Fed the animals, tended the garden, cooked, cleaned, brought them water when the heat made them dizzy. At night, I lay between them, their bodies pressed against mine, their breathing heavy and labored. I would place my hands on their bellies and feel the babies move, small kicks and rolls, proof of life. Do you think they know each other? Yuma asked one night. The babies? What do you mean? Do you think they can sense each other? That they know they are not alone? Maybe, she smiled. I hope so. I hope they grow up together, play together, protect each other. Sitsi shifted, uncomfortable. They will, because we will make sure of it. But I could hear the fear in her voice, the uncertainty. September brought the first contractions. Yuma went into labor on a Tuesday morning, 3 weeks earlier than expected. She woke me with a gasp, her hand clutching her belly. Harlan, it is time. I ran to get Ashki. He had been staying nearby, waiting for this moment. He brought the old healer, the same woman who had saved Yuma during the winter. The labor lasted 18 hours. 18 hours of screaming and blood and terror. And I held Yuma's hand the entire time, whispering encouragements, praying to gods I did not believe in. The old healer worked with calm efficiency, speaking in Apache, her hands steady, but I could see the worry in her eyes, could see the way she kept checking Yuma's pulse, the way she frowned at the amount of blood. Her heart is failing, Ashki translated at one point. The healer says we may have to choose. No, Yuma gasped. Save the baby, promise me. Yuma, I started. Promise me. I promise. But the healer did not have to choose. At the 18th hour, the baby came. A girl, small and red and screaming with fury. Yuma collapsed back, her face gray, her breathing shallow. The healer worked quickly, pressing herbs against the bleeding, chanting in a language that sounded like prayer. Is she going to make it? I asked Ashki. I do not know. I took Yuma's hand. It was cold, too cold. Yuma, stay with me. You promised you would fight. Her eyes fluttered open. The baby? Alive, healthy, beautiful. Let me see her. The healer cleaned the baby quickly and placed her in Yuma's arms. Yuma looked down at her daughter, and something in her face changed. The grayness receded. The coldness left her eyes. Hello, little one, she whispered. I am your mother, and I fought very hard to meet you. The baby stopped crying, as if she understood. What will you name her? I asked. Yuma looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. Sarah, after the woman who made this possible. The words died in my chest. I just nodded and held them both. I just nodded and held them both. That same evening, as Yuma held Sarah for the first time, Sitsi gasped. Her water had broken. The midwife barely had time to prepare before Sitsi's labor began, fierce and fast. This time, I was ready, or I thought I was. But Sitsi's labor was different, faster, harder. She screamed in a way I had never heard anyone scream, a sound of pure animal rage and pain. The baby came after only 6 hours. A boy, large and strong and already furious at the world. Sitsi held him, laughing and crying at the same time. He has your nose, she said to me. He has your fury. Good. He will need it. The healer checked Sitsi, nodded her approval. This one is strong. She will recover quickly. Sitsi looked down at her son. Ashki, she said. His name is Ashki, after my brother, after the man who helped make this possible. Ashki, standing in the corner, bowed his head. I am honored. The babies cried through the night, both of them, taking turns, as if they had planned it. I walked between them, rocking one and then the other, singing songs I half remembered from my own childhood. Yuma and Sitsi watched me from their beds, too exhausted to help, but smiling. You are a good father, Yuma said. I do not know what I am doing. None of us do, but you are trying. That is what matters. October came, and with it, visitors. The Apache elders, Nitis, Mala, and a dozen others. They came to see the children, to verify that they were real, that they were healthy. Nitis held little Sarah in his arms, his one good eye studying her face. She has her mother's eyes, and her father's stubbornness. Mala held Ashki, and for the first time since I had met her, she smiled, not a small smile, a real one, wide and genuine and full of joy. Grandchildren, she said, her voice thick with emotion. I have grandchildren. She looked at me, and the hardness in her face had softened. You kept them alive, Harlan Frost, both of them. You are braver than I believed possible. I just did what anyone would do. No, you did what few men would do. You put their lives before your fear. She handed Ashki back to Sitsi. You are part of our family now, part of our tribe, and we will protect you as you have protected our daughters. Nitis spoke to the gathered elders in Apache. I could not understand the words, but I understood the tone, formal, ceremonial. Ashki translated. He is declaring the children to be full members of the Apache tribe. They will have all rights and protections, and he is declaring you, Harlan Frost, to be a friend of the Apache people. You will be under our protection. What does that mean? It means if anyone tries to hurt you, they will have to go through all of us. I looked at the faces around me, these people who had once been strangers, who had once been enemies, who were now family. Thank you, I said. Nitis walked over, placed his hand on my shoulder. No, thank you. You have given us hope. You have given us a future. That is a debt we can never repay. After the elders left, I stood on the porch with Sitsi and Yuma, each of them holding a baby. What happens now? Yuma asked. Now we raise them, teach them, love them. And the government? Sitsi said. The removal order? Ashki says it will be challenged. The children give you a legal right to stay. It will take time, but we will fight it. Yuma looked down at Sarah sleeping peacefully in her arms. She will grow up here, on this land, with her brother, with her family. Yes, Sitsi smiled. Then we have won. But winning, I was learning, was more complicated than I had thought. November brought a letter. It was delivered by Sheriff Clayton himself, who rode out personally to hand it to me. Harlan, he said, his face grave. You need to read this. I unfolded the paper. It was from Judge Morrison. A summons. I was to appear in court to answer charges of violating the Anti-Miscegenation Act. Merrick filed a formal complaint, Clayton said. He has witnesses who say you are cohabiting with 2 Apache women, that you have fathered children with them. Under territorial law, that is illegal. My hands clenched. What happens if I am found guilty? Prison, loss of property. The children would be declared illegitimate and taken into custody of the territory. Over my dead body, Clayton sighed. Harlan, I am on your side, but the law is the law. You need a lawyer, a good one. I do not have money for a lawyer. Then you need to find another way, because if you lose this case, you lose everything. That night, I told Sitsi and Yuma. They listened in silence, their faces pale. We will leave, Yuma said finally. If it protects you, we will go. No, we are not running. Then what do we do? Sitsi demanded. I thought about it. Thought about the letter I had written, the evidence Ashki had found, the support of the Apache elders. We fight. We go to that courtroom, and we tell the truth, and we make them see that what we have done is not wrong, it is right. And if they do not see it, Yuma asked, then we lose. But we lose together, and that is better than winning alone. The trial was set for December 15th. I had 5 weeks to prepare. Ashki helped me find a lawyer, a man named Thomas Green, who had once defended Apache rights in court. He was old, gray-haired, with eyes that had seen too much injustice, and a voice that still carried the fire of someone who believed in fighting. This will not be easy, Green said when we met. The law is not on your side. Public opinion is not on your side, but you have something more important. What? The truth, and 2 children who are proof that love is stronger than hate. The weeks passed in a blur of preparation. Green interviewed everyone, me, Sitsi, Yuma, Ashki, Dakota, even Mala. He built a case around one simple argument, that the children were legal citizens of the United States, that they had a right to their father, and that removing them from their family would be a greater violation of law than any relationship I might have with their mothers. On December 14th, the night before the trial, I could not sleep. I sat on the porch, wrapped in a blanket, watching the stars. Sitsi came out carrying little Ashki. She sat beside me, the baby sleeping against her chest. Are you afraid? She asked. Terrified. So am I, but I am also grateful. For what? For this, for you, for the chance to be a mother. She looked down at her son. Whatever happens tomorrow, I have already won, because I have him. Yuma joined us, holding Sarah. She sat on my other side, and we stayed like that for hours. 3 people and 2 babies huddled together against the cold and the uncertainty. If we lose, Yuma said softly, promise me you will not give up. Promise me you will keep fighting for them. I promise. And promise me you will tell them we loved them, that everything we did was because we loved them. I promise. She leaned her head against my shoulder. Then I am ready. The courtroom was packed, every seat filled, people standing in the back. The air was thick with tension and judgment. Merrick sat in the front row, smug and confident. Beside him, several men I recognized from town, men who had made their opinions on Apache people very clear. Judge Morrison entered. He was a thin man with a hard face and eyes like chips of ice. He took his seat, banged his gavel. The territory of Arizona versus Harlan Frost, on the charge of violating the Anti-Miscegenation Act of 1865. How does the defendant plead? Green stood. Not guilty, Your Honor. The trial lasted 3 days. 3 days of testimony and cross-examination and legal arguments that twisted my brain into knots. Merrick testified first. He described in detail how I had been living with 2 Apache women, how I had fathered children with them, how I had violated the sanctity of white society. This man has betrayed his race, Merrick said, his voice ringing through the courtroom. He has polluted his bloodline and created children who belong to neither world. He should be punished to the full extent of the law. Green cross-examined him carefully. Mr. Frost, is it true that you once attempted to claim Harlan Frost's land as your own? I am his cousin. I have a right. Is it true that you are not in fact related to Harlan Frost? That you have been using fraudulent genealogy records to establish a false claim? Merrick's face went red. That is a lie. Green produced the documents Ashki had found. These records, verified by 3 independent sources, show that you are not related to the Frost family, that you are, in fact, the illegitimate son of the previous landowner, and that you have been attempting to steal land that does not belong to you. The courtroom erupted. Judge Morrison banged his gavel, calling for order. Merrick sputtered, unable to form words. Green pressed on. "Is it possible, Mr. Frost, that your complaint against Harlan is not about law or morality, but about personal vendetta? About jealousy over land and over a woman who chose him instead of you?" That is not—" "No further questions, Your Honor." Merrick left the stand in disgrace. Several people in the courtroom whispered. The tide was beginning to turn. Sitsi testified next. She spoke in careful English, her voice strong and clear. "I chose Harlan Frost," she said. "I asked him to help me. I asked him to give me a child. It was my decision, my choice, and I would make the same choice again." The prosecutor, a young man named Harris, tried to shake her. "Miss Sitsi, are you aware that what you did is illegal under territorial law?" "I am aware that many laws are unjust. This is one of them." "You believe you are above the law?" "I believe that the law should protect families, not destroy them. My son has a father who loves him. That is not illegal. That is human." Yuma testified last. She was weak, still recovering, but her voice was steady. "I was dying," she said simply. "My heart was failing. I had maybe 2 years left, but I wanted my life to matter. I wanted to leave something behind, a child, a future. Harlan Frost gave me that. He gave me hope, and he gave me a daughter who will live long after I am gone." Harris tried to discredit her. "Miss Yuma, you admit you manipulated Mr. Frost into this arrangement?" "No," I asked him. "There is a difference. You used your condition to gain sympathy. I used my truth to ask for help, and he said yes. That is called compassion. You should try it sometime." The courtroom laughed. Even Judge Morrison smiled slightly. Green called character witnesses. Ashki testified about my courage during the winter. Dakota testified about my willingness to protect Sitsi and Yuma. Even Mala testified, reluctantly, about how I had saved Yuma's life. Finally, Green called me. I walked to the stand, my legs shaking. I was sworn in. I sat down. Green approached. "Mr. Frost, why did you agree to help these women?" I thought about all the reasons. About Sarah's letter, about loneliness, about wanting to matter. But in the end, I told the simplest truth. Because they asked me to, and because I believe that helping someone survive is never wrong, even if it violates the law, especially if it violates the law. Because some laws are designed to keep people apart, and I believe we are better together. "Do you love these women?" I paused. It was a question I had not asked myself, not directly. "I respect them. I care for them. I want them to live and be happy. If that is love, then yes, I love them." "And the children? The children are mine. I claim them. I will protect them. I will raise them. And anyone who tries to take them from me will have to kill me first." The courtroom went silent. Harris cross-examined me, trying to make me angry, trying to get me to say something that would hurt my case. But I stayed calm, answered every question honestly. When I stepped down, I looked at Sitsi and Yuma, sitting in the front row, each holding a baby. They were crying. Green gave his closing argument. "Your Honor, this case is not about law. It is about fear. Fear of change. Fear of difference. Fear of a future that looks different from the past, but that future is already here. These 2 children, Sarah and Ashki, are American citizens. They have rights, and one of those rights is to have a father, to have a family. The law may say that their parents should not be together, but a higher law, the law of human decency, says that love and family matter more than the color of skin or the origin of blood. I ask you to dismiss these charges, not because the law is on our side, but because justice is." Harris gave his closing argument full of fire and fury about protecting society and upholding traditional values, but I could see it in the faces of the people in the courtroom. They were not convinced. They had heard the truth. and the truth was louder than his rhetoric. Judge Morrison took 2 hours to deliberate. When he returned, the courtroom was so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat. "I have reviewed the evidence and the testimony," he said. "This is not an easy case. The law is clear. The Anti-Miscegenation Act prohibits relationships between whites and Indians. Mr. Frost has clearly violated that law." My heart sank. "However," Morrison continued, "the law also recognizes the rights of children. These 2 infants are American citizens. They have a right to their father. To separate them from him would be a greater injustice than any violation Mr. Frost may have committed." He paused, looking directly at me. "Furthermore, I find the circumstances of this case to be extraordinary. Mr. Frost did not enter into this arrangement out of lust or exploitation. He did so out of compassion. And while I cannot condone his actions, I also cannot in good conscience destroy a family that is causing no harm to anyone." He banged his gavel. "The charges are dismissed. Mr. Frost, you are free to go. But I warn you, if you are brought before me again on similar charges, I will not be so lenient." The courtroom erupted in cheers and boos in equal measure. I sat there, stunned, unable to process what had just happened. Green gripped my shoulder. "You won." Sitsi and Yuma rushed to me, the babies in their arms, tears streaming down their faces. We held each other, the 5 of us, while the courtroom slowly emptied around us. We had won. We went home that night, exhausted and grateful. The stars were bright overhead, the air cold and clean. I built a fire. We sat around it, the babies sleeping in makeshift cradles nearby. "What happens now?" Yuma asked. "Now we live," I said. "We raise these children. We build something good." Sitsi looked at me. "And your name? Frost?" I thought about it, about Sarah, about the man I had been and the man I was becoming. "The children will carry both names," I said. "Frost and their Apache names. They will belong to both worlds. That is their strength." "And you?" Mala had arrived earlier, staying to help with the babies. She asked the question from across the fire. "I will keep my name, but I will add yours, Harlan Frost Naiche, to honor the family I have joined." Nitis, who had also stayed, nodded his approval. "Then you are truly one of us." 3 months after the trial, Nitis sent word. The entire tribe would gather at the sacred canyon for a ceremony. He did not say what ceremony. He did not need to. We rode there at dawn, Sitsi and Yuma, each carrying a baby wrapped against the cold. When we arrived, 200 Apache stood in a circle around a fire pit carved into red stone. Nitis stepped forward. He held a ceremonial knife, the blade black as night, the handle wrapped in leather older than memory. "Harlan Frost," he said, his voice carrying across the canyon. "You have proven yourself. You saved our daughters. You gave us children who will carry our blood into the future. But you are still a white man with a white name, and white names do not belong to Apache families." He raised the knife. The firelight caught the blade. "If you want to be one of us, you must give up what you were. You must become who you need to be." Sitsi stepped forward, holding Ashki. Yuma followed, holding Sarah. They stood on either side of me, silent. Nitis walked closer. "Will you give up the name Frost? Will you take the name Naichi and never speak your old name again?" I looked at the knife, at the 200 faces watching me, at Sitsi and Yuma and the children who would grow up in 2 worlds. I thought about Sarah, about the letter she had written, about the promise to try again. She would understand. She had always understood. "Yes," I said. "I give up Frost. I take Naiche." Nitis cut a lock of my hair. He held it over the fire, let it burn, the smell sharp and final. "From this day," he said, "you are Harlan Naiche. Your children are Naiche. Your land is Naiche land. and when you die, you will be buried as Apache, not as white." He pressed ash from the fire onto my forehead, then onto each baby's forehead. "The old name is dead. The new name lives." The tribe began to chant, low and rhythmic, like thunder rolling across stone. Sitsi took my hand. Yuma took my other hand, and I stood there, no longer the man I had been, becoming the man I needed to be. For them, for the children, for the future we were building from dust and hope. 2 years passed. The ranch grew. We added a room for the children, then another. Sitsi taught them Apache songs. Yuma taught them to read. I taught them to care for animals, to plant seeds, to fix what was broken. Sarah grew into a quiet, thoughtful child with her mother's eyes and her aunt's fierce determination. Ashki grew loud and strong, always laughing, always moving. Other Apache families began to visit, then stay. The ranch became a gathering place, a bridge between 2 worlds. Dakota married an Apache woman named Casa. They had 2 children of their own, but Dakota still visited often, teaching Ashki to shoot a bow, telling him stories of the old ways. Merrick disappeared. Some said he went to California. Others said he drank himself to death. I did not care. He was gone, and that was enough. One evening, as the sun set and the children played in the yard, I sat on the porch with Sitsi and Yuma. "Do you ever regret it?" Yuma asked. "Choosing this life?" I thought about Sarah's letter, about the 3 years of silence, about the moment 2 women rode into my life and changed everything. "No," I said. "Never. Not once." Sitsi leaned her head on my shoulder. "Good, because we are not done yet." "What do you mean?" Yuma smiled. "We are thinking about trying again, for more children. The tribe is growing stronger. We need more." I laughed, surprised and terrified and happy all at once. "You are serious, always." I looked out at the land, at the children playing, at the future we were building together. "All right," I said. "Let us try again." Because that, I realized, was what life was. Trying, failing, trying again, building something that mattered out of dust and hope and the stubborn belief that love was stronger than fear. Sarah had asked me to try again, and I had. And in trying, I had found something I thought I had lost forever: a family, a purpose, a home. And that was more than enough. That was everything. The stars came out, cold and bright and infinite. And beneath them, on a small ranch in Arizona, 5 people who had found each other against all odds sat together and dreamed of tomorrow. Together, always together.